Welcome to the 20th episode of Get Chatty About Your Local Businesses, a podcast about small businesses that are servicing Melbourne and the Greater Victoria area. And today I got a new friend, Tim Dean. How are you?
Hello, Arthur. I'm very good. How are you doing?
Really good, really excited, and
Me too.
thanks for being the interviewee of the series one finale.
Wow. Wow. Better be good. We want people to come back.
Exactly. Tim Dean is a coach and the guest of this series finale episode. In the episode, you'll hear about Tim's journey to coaching. Different coaches work differently for different people. Tim works with people in the small business space, help them to be and hold them accountable for the goals that they set for themselves. Now, let's be honest here, everyone these days can call themselves coaches, and the industry is not regulated. So Tim made sure that he was certified with the International Coaching Federation, where such certification ensures adherence to ethical standards and competencies. We also talked about different generation and the LGBT plus space from the coaching perspective. So without further ado, let's get to meet Tim. Let's get to know you a little bit. Like, who is Coach Tim?
Yeah, thank you. And again, it's an honor to be here. I know, as you know, Arthur, we met fairly recently, but I could just tell immediately that you were someone that others are drawn to. So this is no
Thank you.
surprise that you host a podcast like this. So I'm honored to be included in what is literally your season finale. So
Mhm.
thank you for that. Yeah, my name is Tim. As you mentioned, I am a coach. Um, but certainly, like everyone's journey who's probably listening, I haven't always been a coach. So if my accent hasn't already given me away, I'm originally from the US, moved to Melbourne 2 years ago now. And prior, when I was in the US, I had many a different careers, many a different trajectories that maybe many of your listeners have followed that were pretty standard, pretty conforming, pretty known. Get the degree, get the good job, get the promotion, keep going, moving up, moving. I lived in multiple cities for different promotions and making the high salary, et cetera, et cetera. And it was interesting, Arthur, like after many years of doing that, I remember leaving not one, not two, but three separate jobs, well paying jobs, without even a coffee schedule, let alone another job offer from another company. And when I finally did it the third time, I kind of had to put a time out and recognize, okay, wait, what's going on? And it was during that reflection that I realized, okay, that isn't the path for me anymore. But I had zero idea of what was. And it was through a sit down with a good friend. I was living in St. Louis, Missouri at the time. And he asked me some good questions and just kind of prying and digging on all of my previous experiences, but primarily focused on where was I the most rewarded? What examples did I feel the most fed and the most motivated and the most energized? And then he had me describe an example from a previous role in detail. And he said, okay, that's a dot. Give me another one. And then I had to think again. And some of these examples went all the way back to my uni days. And he said, okay, now you have all these dots. Let's virtually in your mind connect them with this piece of string. He said, there's your thread. And he said, you know what? There's an industry that is that. And it's called coaching. And it was literally my introduction to the industry. I knew nothing about it. And he said, it sounds like you might as well do it anyway. Sorry, you might as well do it and get paid for it because clearly you're going to do it anyway. Because some of those examples I shared with him, some had nothing to do with the job role and the title and the company I was working for. I was doing things outside of work, volunteering here, joining this task force there. And when he said you might as well do it, you might as well get paid if you're going to do it anyway, I thought, true, but I knew nothing about it. So fast forward, got certified in the industry, which isn't required for those that are familiar with coaching. It is a global industry, but it's not regulated. So anyone can call themselves a coach. So I try and recommend anyone who is looking to partner with a coach that to please find someone who's certified, because we've been trained to recognize what coaching is and what coaching is not. And there's a really hard wall there that shouldn't really be crossed.
Can you tell me a little bit about like what that certification and the training involved that make it different from, I mean, it's true, anyone and everyone can put it on their business card that they're a coach. Like, what's the coaching for? Coaching to flush the toilet? I mean, but yeah, can you give us a bit of idea of what make it different?
Oh, no, it's a great question. And every potential client, I share this as well up front, because to be blunt, it's a very misunderstood industry. In fact, I remember when I completed my certification, I landed back in St. Louis at the airport getting my baggage at baggage claim, and a gentleman came and we were waiting together and just striking up a conversation. I asked, "What do you do?" He told me, and he said, "Oh, what do you do?" I said, "Oh, I'm a coach," because I was all excited and I just got my certification. And his first response was, "Oh, what team?" I was like, "Oh, wait, okay, no, not a sport coach."
Oh, it's blah, blah, blah high school
Yeah,
football
yeah.
team or whatever.
So, for those that are curious, the gold standard of all global coaching is called the International Coaching Federation, or ICF. And it was through my research that I found the ICF before I even chose which program to attend. And there's literally hundreds of different certification processes and programs globally. Um, but yeah, ICF is certainly, they're going to be the go-to entity should it ever get regulated. But they've identified what are the standards of conduct, what are the code of ethics, what are the competencies that a qualified, certified coach needs to adhere to consistently, regularly, incrementally, through a very stringent process. And the best way to describe the difference and the uniqueness of coaching is there's two kind of clear edicts. The first is, unlike someone you might partner with, like a consultant or an advisor or even a psychologist, you're partnering with them, you're going to them for their expertise. You're saying, "Hey, here's my issue, here's my need." They then say, "Oh, let me work up a strategy, and here you go." Um, and then you respond, and it's very much a two-way engagement, and uh, it's a give and take.
Hmm.
Coaching is the only discipline, when done correctly, and this is what I learned getting certified through ICF training, is coaching is solely one way, meaning it's always about you 100%. And this is going to sound counterintuitive. A coach never gives advice,
Hmm.
because that's one of the walls. Is that's primarily for someone who's more a licensed professional, like a psychologist, psychiatrist, who's helping you address things in your past. With a coach, I'm solely focused on today and tomorrow, your present and your future. So that's one of the edicts, is we don't cross that wall and give psychology advice. But the other thing is, back to the engagement, it's one way. Now, the uniqueness is, um, I'm not exactly sitting there singing Kumbaya with you and saying, "Oh, what do you feel like doing?" It's very, again, intentional, incremental, and quantifiable progress. I keep you directed, focused, and accountable. Um, but it's really guiding and
Hmm.
partnering. And I'm not your buddy. I'm not your friend. I'm not someone you're just bouncing ideas off of. Who I am is this partner that, again, is going to keep you adhering to, you said you wanted X, you didn't reach it, what happened? So it has a very intentional, almost business intent to it. If people have heard of SMART goals that are, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound, they're all that. So there is intentionality around ensuring the person is achieving what they claim they want. And again, you're more inclined to achieve goals you can come up with and you state than any I could ever kind of oughta, woulda, shoulda tell you in advice that maybe a consultant or an advisor or a mentor might otherwise tell you.
This is very interesting because I first impression, I thought there's like the similarity with, for example, psychologists or even personal trainer. There's advices to go into that, but then it's very different actually, because I was I mean, before the episode, I was actually preparing for like what I can draw parallels to. So, for example, like personal trainer can train your body, or your mechanic can help fixing your car. But that's actually not quite what you're doing, because you're guiding people through a path. Here's a weird question. What happens if they don't follow their path, their own path?
Yeah,
Do you slap them shitless? I mean, no, just kidding. Just kidding. Nope, 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 nope.
You ask an excellent question, Arthur. It's interesting getting certified through an ICF program. Any certified coach will insist that any new potential client will have to go through what we call an abbreviated mini session, almost like a trial run. It's typically, complimentary, no cost. It takes about 30 minutes. And what it's doing is exactly addressing some of the kind of scenario thing you're describing. Is it gives the individual, okay, what am I getting myself into? What does a coaching session feel like, sound like? What are the questions like, et cetera? It's also an opportunity for the coach. Without telling them, I'm assessing what is their preparedness and incentive, and are they ready for this? I always get asked, well, how many people at the end of that mini session have you had to say, no, break, sorry, no, you're not ready? And you're going to laugh. The answer is 0 out of the literally hundreds I think I've done. It's because at the end of that mini session, I'm always asking questions. That's the difference. A coach is always using questions, probing questions, follow-up questions to keep helping dig. But at the end of the session, when I tell them, okay, congratulations, you've completed your mini session, and I've been assessing their receptivity this whole time, I'll ask, well, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? And not almost, every single time, because the number's 0, that person will opt themselves out at that moment. They'll just hem and haw and say, well, I don't, this doesn't feel right. And, I just don't have the time, or, I don't know, I'm not in for the commitment. And I'm like, great, you're not ready. And that's kind of the big rub. Is it's rarely a question of if, it's just a question of when an individual is ready and prepared. And I'll give you a great example. 3 years ago, I met a gentleman. I was delivering an online session for a friend of mine's a professor back at a university. And once every semester, I'm one of her guest speakers, and I was sharing a lot of the same information about coaching, et cetera. But one of the students, responded. He and I had that mini session 3 years ago. And sure enough, at the end, he opted himself out. And then fast forward 2.5 years later, out of the blue, I get an email from him. I had to look him up because I forgot who he was. And he said, I think I'm ready. So we repeated the mini session because so much had changed. And he was like, I'm ready. So you just never know.
I think in many ways that when someone identified the need of getting a coach, that's the first barrier that they get through. But then there's also a second barrier: is, are they ready to receive the information to get there? And then of course there are a third barrier of, if the coach is compatible with who they are.
And that's an excellent point. I'm glad you brought that up, Arthur, is because it needs to be a mutual fit.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assessing the receptivity. I'm not looking to make them a friend. I'm looking, is this person coachable right now? The other person equally has to feel comfortable and trust and et cetera. 100% true.
I was talking to a colleague of mine that because we deal with a lot of Gen Z and younger people, and we notice something quite peculiar in a way, that many people that are a lot younger than us, that may be like under 25 or something like that.
Maybe a lot younger than me, not that much younger than you. Go ahead.
No, I mean,
but I appreciate putting us together there.
Oh no, I just have a good filter. I mean, I just have a good filter. I'm in my 40s,
Yeah,
but I mean, it's anyway.
yeah.
And we talk about, for example, the youngest millennials, or Gen Z, or even the Alpha generation, or whatever they call it, that because of the internet, that many people are very good at intellectualizing information, but not very good at processing it to
Mm.
make it usable for them. And do you feel that that might be one of the things that might be an emerging needs in the coaching space?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I have examples of history of real life millennials and Gen Zs that I've coached, and just some of the uniquenesses, if you will, that that generation bring versus I'm a Gen Xer or even baby boomers. The thing I found really positive is millennials, certainly, and to a degree, Gen Z, have been coached since birth. Um,
Mm.
because if you think about it, it kind of makes logical sense. The Gen Xers, my generation, when we grew up, we had neither parent home because through divorce or they were both working. So that's hence the nickname latchkey generation, because we were wearing our house key around our neck. We'd come back from school and let us ourselves in and be alone until dinner, until one or both parents came home. So when we became adults and had kids, we said, "Oh hell no, we're not going to do that." So instead of having neither parents home, swung the pendulum almost all the way to the other side, and say both parents are going to be home. And technology enabled that with working from home, et cetera, even pre-COVID. And as such, then you had the children of millennials that grew up now with both parents almost hovering. And and because of that, good, bad, or indifferent, they're very receptive in general, certainly greater than the older generations from the start, because they love feedback, they're collaborators, they're the best collaborators, they want input, they like to give feedback. So I think they're more primed for coaching, just mentally. And history through my clients has kind of proven that. Um, the interesting question though that you're bringing up is just the way they process information, or or how they process it. Um, and I think there's some legs to that, because you know there's such bombardment of information that they're able to parcel it, as opposed to almost process it or sit with it, or integrate it.
In one of the earlier episodes with another guest, we talk about the difference between information and knowledge. And just like
Mm,
what you said,
mm,
that once they process it in a way that I'm not putting words in your mouth, but then in a way that when they turn that into knowledge, that it can be part of their life forever, that they can use, adapt. But if it is information, it might be a short term thing. Actually, this is the funny part. I always refer to Gen Z as Gen Z, but then I thought Z is an American way to pronounce, so I changed that.
it is.
And but I really appreciate that you said Z, because I actually used to Z as zebra. Anyway,
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
something like that. But anyway, thank you. I appreciate that. Shit, where? Yeah, well, if anything that this decade have taught us so far is don't predict. Even up to 2019, that there were people still using the expression of 2020 vision. Well, guess what happened?
Yeah.
The universe said, guess again. We're heading to a very uncertain time, especially at this decade that we're looking at. What do you think the LGBT plus community who runs their own small business that may need to consider what our space need? So, what do you reckon?
Yeah, and it's a great question. I really appreciate even the opportunity to think of that and to ponder it. Um, Obviously, the simple answer is no one knows. However, I think it's healthy and positive to predict and use history or the trajectory is a good predictor. You know, the best indicator for future behavior is past performance. So I think specifically for the LGBTQ, especially small business owners, is very positive. And I say that holistically because I have now two different continent perspectives, US and Australia, where small business, again, is just the engine that keeps every economy going. Small business is it. Thankfully, both countries, the US and Australia, are very cognizant of that and have many programs designed to help. In fact, I was living in Las Vegas before I moved over here. Before I moved here, I was a member of what's called the Chamber of Commerce for the Las Vegas LGBTQ small businesses. And
Oh,
those things exist everywhere. And thankfully, many uh, entities, funding and grants and governments support it because they know you're going to employ people and you're going to keep the economy going. Um, when it comes to coaching specifically, I see it only growing. I mean, it's just exploded. It's about 20 years and counting since it really just became kind of its own industry. It's interesting. Many decades ago, um, people who wanted to coach went back to school, got their PhD, and became a licensed psychologist and psychiatrist, and then coached, but did it in the auspice of being a counselor. But now that 20 years later, and the ICF has identified all the ways to do it, it's interesting. I've known a lot of psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors that are now full-time coaches because it gives them more freedom to be a guide as opposed and being futuristic. Bluntly, it helps the person look to their future, and that's why I think coaching is perfectly kind of aligned for any type of futuristic discussion, is because the entire edict of coaching, half of it is tomorrow, is what do you want next. um, And just finally, again, when I think of our community, um, and I've experienced this now on two different hemispheres. There is just such support within the LGBTQ community for each other. Because again, we get it, we know each other, we've been there. Um, it, it it's one of those kind of unwritten like tethers or not unwritten, unseen but unwritten rules of when you meet and you know you're part of our community, you're like, what can I do to help?
for me, that I do feel that we are living in a world, especially for this decade, that it's people are increasingly divided, that being compartmentalized, if you may, if that's the right word. Uh, I do find that it's important for the LGBT plus and friends and ally community to stick together. And it's really good to have the small business space congeal together as well, because it's when you have economic activities, when you're contributing to the community and society, it makes your voice stronger. And I think it's not like we have to go out there and yell and scream at everything, but just have that potential that everyone's working together, everyone having that understanding that yes, everyone's different, but it's also very important that is for these people that forge their own path, having that strength and understanding that there's a community for you and there's people that who think similarly to yourself. So I think something like even for yourself, that what you're doing, that you're helping people to realize their dreams or helping people figuring out their path, I think it's really important. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing. And I can only say keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, clearly
Please.
I'm gonna do it anyway, so.
Oh, there you go. There you go. That's fine.
Helping the owners and the leaders of all these small businesses, assuring and helping them identify, uh, clarify, and commit to their own business and personal aspiration goals. They're in essence living the intertwining that I do in my practice with my 6 areas: career, relationship, families and relationships, finances, health, lifestyle, and personal. And because they're all interconnected, another big difference that a holistic coach like myself helps with is different than, say, like a myopic career coach.
Mm.
Is a career coach primarily is helping you drill into helping you find the next job, which, as part of the 6, that's clearly a priority for you. If that is one, we'll focus on that first. Note, though, that unlike a career coach, I'm asking questions like, oh, you say you now want to focus on this new career. What kind of financial compensation do you need to live the lifestyle you want and
Mm.
maintain the relationship you said earlier? Because the goals you said with your partner is X, Y, and Z. What lifestyle do you want to maintain while you're making that salary? Where do you want to live? Like, what kind of, it's because they're so interconnected. They're doing it for business owners now and business leaders, to ensure, yes, the business is sustainable. Yes, the business, has for the long term. And you as an owner are also achieving what you want for your 6 areas and your aspirations across all 6. So I couldn't have, scripted it any better. So it's just a good fit for now.
Well, actually, in that case, for people who are interested in getting your coaching and get your help, how can they find you?
Oh yeah, great. My coaching website is www.thecoachingdean. You may see my surname is Dean, so it's thecoachingdean.com. My new company is Adapt, and that's www.theadaptway.com.
And I'll put all of those on the show note to everyone. Please
Love
check
it.
it out.
Coaching can be such an abstract space, and a half-hour podcast may not cover everything involved. But I hope you get a glimpse of learnings that can help entrepreneurs navigate the journey with better clarity and goal orientation with someone like Tim. His journey highlights how important it is to self-reflect and understand your true passion, especially when you are feeling a little lost in life. There's great value in self-discovery, and for entrepreneurs, making time to assess your motivation and strength can be a great way to set yourself up for the future. I like that Tim's coaching work centered on present and future. If you're starting something like your own project, for example, this will give you a forward-looking perspective and setting clear, actionable goals and work incrementally towards achieving them. But we also need to look at the world is an ever-changing world. So if you look at Tim's experience with the LGBT+ community or business experience in the US or Australia, it really shows how important it is to be adaptable and leverage your community resources. There's no harm to look for supportive networks that can provide guidance, resources, or even as little as sense of belonging. At the end of the day, that's kind of what I was hoping to do with this podcast. I think after working on this podcast in 2024, I discovered that I really like storytelling. I don't need this to be a huge media conglomerate, but I would like this to be a community message. For someone who's working on their own, who's someone who works in a very small team, or someone who just have an aspiration, just have a little think about being a little bit entertained and also learn a little something. For me, this has been a great experience, and I can assure you that there will be a second series coming up in 2025. Until next time, thank you so much once again for your company and have an amazing day. Get Chatty About Your Local Businesses podcast is produced by me, Arthur, the Chatty Curator. Thanks for your company. I hope you enjoyed this episode, learn something new, or pick up something helpful to realize your aspirations. The podcast guests are making time and appearing in kind, so please consider supporting the podcast by supporting them. By liking and sharing on social media or tagging a friend about it. You can find out on the show notes or send the episode's dedicated page on chattycurator.com if you prefer to listen without a Spotify or YouTube music account. Until the next episode, let's keep on getting chatty about your local businesses. Have a great day.